What if I told you that hidden beneath the mist-shrouded forests of medieval Japan lurked creatures so terrifying that even the bravest samurai trembled at their names? In the flicker of torchlight, villagers whispered of fox spirits who stole voices, of monstrous serpents that devoured entire villages, and of spectral warriors whose sorrow could curse a man to madness. Tonight, you'll drift into a world where honor and horror collide, where every shadow might conceal a demon's grin, and where you'll discover secrets older than any emperor's reign. Long ago, when the very mountains seemed alive with ancient magic, the land we call Japan was a tapestry of warring clans and hidden shrines. Farmers toiled beneath heavy skies, offering rice and sake to please gods both benevolent and cruel, praying their offerings would hold back the storms of vengeance. Murmured tales spoke of the Tengu, crow-like demons perched high in cedar groves, teaching swordplay to lost samurai in exchange for loyalty. But those who apprenticed with these agile tricksters soon learned that every lesson exacted a price, often paid in blood or broken souls. In a village nestled at the foot of Mount High, an elderly woodcutter named Masaru discovered that myth could bleed into reality. One autumn dusk, as scarlet leaves danced around his ankles, he stumbled on a shrine long abandoned. A single red torii gate stood like a sentinel against twilight, its paint peeling but its power undiminished. Compelled by a whisper carried on the wind, half plea, half threat, Masaru stepped across the threshold. What greeted him was not the guardian kami he expected, but a pale-faced maiden with eyes like polished jet and a smile that bore no warmth. She introduced herself as Okiku, the spirit of vengeance, bound by a promise broken centuries before. Masaru thought he heard her laughter echo as the forest went silent and the shadows drew in closer around him. Meanwhile, tales of the nine-tailed fox spread through the underworld of courtiers and ronin alike. Kitsune were shapeshifters, sometimes benevolent, sometimes malevolent, depending on their age and appetite. An old merchant in Kyoto boasted that his ancestor had outsmarted a fox spirit, forcing it to serve his family for generations. But when the merchant's descendants failed to honor their pact, neglecting nightly offerings of rice cakes, the fox's kindness curdled into spite. That very night, the merchant's daughter disappeared, her laughter replaced by tortured screams that echoed from the abandoned tea house by the riverbank. When villagers finally dared to enter, they found only a single red fox tail draped over a shattered tea bowl. Yet, not all legends thrived in moonlit forests. Some drank at the very heart of human ambition. The legendary Shutendoji, a fearsome demon king with a taste for sake and sorrow, ruled a hidden fortress atop Mount Oi. Bandits who pledged fealty to him became invincible, their blades dripping with otherworldly darkness. In return, Shutendoji demanded fresh sake and the hearts of the purest maidens from nearby villages. Each ritual feast was a grotesque ballet. Torches cast flickering shadows on alabaster skin, drums beat like a heart trapped in ice, and the demon's laughter rolled through the cavernous hall like thunder in a crypt. Only one man dared to challenge him, Minamoto no Reiko, a samurai whose name meant thunder. Armed with enchanted blades and guided by a kitsune named Hakazosu, Reiko infiltrated the demon's lair disguised as a drunken guest. The outcome of that night still ripples through our stories, for some secrets are too terrible to remain buried. As these myths spread, scribes and monks penned scrolls illuminating the thin veil between our world and the realm of the uncanny. Temple walls bore paintings of Oni, hulking, horned fiends brandishing spiked clubs, their roars captured in swirling brushstrokes of crimson and indigo. Monks chanted incantations to keep these monsters at bay, yet even the holiest chants faltered when an Oni slipped through a broken seal or upon the death of an underpaid priest. One such tale recounts how an Oni named Yasha stalked the lonely passes of Kai province. Travelers vanished without a trace, their screams swallowed by the wind. Only the faint echo of iron chains offered any clue that something enormous and inhuman roamed the mountain trail. It was said that Yasha's only weakness was the pure light of 100 lanterns, yet lighting so many torches required a faith so strong it could crack a man's mind. But why do these stories endure? What ancient urge drives us to share nightmares around a campfire? Perhaps it's the thrill of dancing on the edge of fear, of testing the boundary between the living and the dead. Or maybe it's the hope that by telling these tales, we keep real darkness at arm's length. Consider the legend of the yokai known as the Naprobo, a faceless ghost that approaches travelers on lonely roads. It mimics the form of a loved one, calling out in a familiar voice, before wiping away its features in a moment that freezes the blood in your veins. The true horror isn't the face that isn't there. It's the moment you realize that what you trusted was only an illusion. Midway through our journey, let's pause to consider the role these myths played in daily life. Feudal lords used tales of vengeful spirits to enforce loyalty among their retainers, while mothers warned children of kitsune to keep them from wandering into dangerous woods at dusk. Even today, shrines dedicated to kami like Inari, guardian of fox spirits, draw millions of worshippers who leave red gates and rice offerings, bridging a millennia-old dialogue between human and divine. When you walk through those tunnels of Vermilion Torii at Fushimi Inari Shrine, can you feel the weight of those centuries? Each gate a testament to fear and faith intertwined. Yet beneath the theatrics of monster hunting and demon slaying lies a profound reflection on human nature. Take the story of the Izuka, the masked warriors of legend said to patrol the coastline during typhoon season. They carried no sword nor bow, but instead wielded compassion, or so it is told. Shipwrecked fishermen found themselves guided by these silent figures through roaring surf to dry land. Only after dawn would they discover footprints leading into the waves, as if the Izuka had vanished into the sea itself. Were these benevolent spirits or an embodiment of nature's mercy? The ambiguity lingers, challenging us to ask, when does myth end and morality begin? As moonlight filters through bamboo groves and the haunting strains of a distant shakuhachi flute echo over misty hills, we realize that the legends of feudal Japan are more than bedtime stories for weary warriors. They are mirrors, reflecting our deepest hopes and darkest fears. They teach that honor without humility breeds arrogance, that power unchecked invites destruction, and that kindness can be as potent a weapon as any blade. In the next chapter of this odyssey, we will venture deeper into haunted palaces and forgotten battlefields, where the spirits of samurai rise to settle ancient scores. But now, let the final echo of these tales linger in your mind, like the last embers of a dying fire, warm yet tinged with smoke. You stand on the threshold between history and imagination, where every whispered legend urges you forward into the next secret. And the night is still young. A pale mist curled around the mossy stones of Himeji's abandoned inner courtyard as dawn's first light struggled through dark clouds. Here, they say, the ghostly procession of Haika warriors marches each morning, their armor clinking like distant thunder. No witness has dared approach, for the clang of spectral swords and the mournful wails of fallen samurai echo through empty hallways, stirring memories of a dynasty's bitter end. Imagine standing there, heart-pounding as a tattered banner drifts on an unseen breeze. Do you flee, or watch history replay itself in phantom form? Centuries earlier, beneath this very castle's eaves, a young courtier named Iam defied her station. Betrothed to a cruel nobleman, she sought solace in forbidden poetry, pouring her heart into verses that angered her overlord. One night, she vanished without trace. Some claim she slipped into a hidden well, her final lament lost to the cold water's depths. In the years that followed, visitors reported hearing her sigh in the moonlight, a soft lament rising from the well's mouth. Those brave enough to lean in heard a single line in her lilting voice. Tell me, would you trade your life for words unspoken? And then silence would swallow everything. Beyond the castle walls, fields once slick with blood now lie silent under swaying grasses. At Dano Yūrei, where the Haika sank to ruin, fishermen still dredge nets heavy with barnacled swords and rusted helmets. Legend holds that on stormy nights, the spirits of drowned warriors rise from the depths, their bodies entangled in kelp, eyes burning with sorrow. They drift toward shore, laying down their arms before dissolving into foam. Some believe that recovering these relics is an act of mercy, returning restless souls to peace, while others warn that each weapon dredged up disturbs the grave waters, inviting a vengeance as tidal as the sea. Farther north, in the shadow of Mount Tsukuba, stands the ruined palace of Lord Kayamori. Once the most powerful man in Japan, he bent temples and emperors to his will until his own ambition consumed him. Courtiers whispered that he danced with Oni in secret feasts, offering human souls in exchange for imperial favor. When he died, they say he returned as a red-eyed demon, stalking the silent corridors of his former stronghold. Travelers report glimpsing his towering silhouette on misty nights, gaunt face illuminated by torchlight, and hearing his raspy whisper, "Power belongs to the brave and the damned." But not all spirits thirst for vengeance. In the sacred grove of Mount Takao, monks recount the tale of Shizuka Guzan, the legendary Shirabai Oshi dancer. Forced apart from her beloved, Minamoto no Yoshitsune, she wandered through bitter winters, performing prayers and dances to soothe his restless shade. Pilgrims who pause by the ancient cedar claim they see a flicker of white robes moving among the branches on moonlit nights, and if they bow their heads and close their eyes, they feel her gentle presence, guiding them toward compassion and forgiveness. Her story reminds us that love can transcend death, weaving grace into even the coldest heart. As the sun climbs high, we reach the haunted battlefields of Sekigahara, where the clash that sealed Japan's future stained the earth with rivers of crimson. Here, legend speaks of two rival generals, one haunted by regret, the other by pride, who both refused to die. For decades after the smoke cleared, farmers found ancient helms half buried in fields where no graves lay. At harvest time, they heard distant drums and shouted orders, as if two armies still fought between stalks of rice. Could the echoes of that blood-soaked dawn be locked into the land itself, destined to replay until someone dares to forgive? Midway through our journey, pause and feel the weight of these stories. They are more than ghosts and goblins. They are warnings etched into memory, reminders of the cost of ambition, the fragility of honor, and the redemptive power of mercy. Every legend carried a lesson. Respect the spirits that guard the natural world. Honor your promises. Never underestimate the strength of compassion in a world ruled by steel. Yet every myth harbors a flicker of ambiguity. Who is the true monster, the Oni who feasts on human flesh, or the Lord whose greed summons the demon's wrath? Is the faceless priest on the mountain a benevolent guide or a trickster testing the limits of faith? When you hear that late-night whisper outside your window, do you flee or listen? For in these echoes lies the heart of feudal Japan, a realm where humanity and the supernatural dance on a razor's edge. Now, as dusk descends once more and torches are lit within ancient shrines, you stand at the threshold of deeper mysteries. The land's secret heart pulses with stories of forbidden love, unbreakable oaths, and souls unable to rest. Soon, we will step into those hidden sanctuaries and uncover the rituals that bind our world to the next, and perhaps glimpse truths that blur the line between myth and reality. Yet for now, let the wind carry these echoes into your dreams, where honor and horror entwine in silent balance. But tonight, our path winds deeper into the hidden crevices of this ancient realm, where even the wind seems to whisper warnings. In the low marshes of Ekigo province, villagers speak of a colossal catfish, Namazu, buried beneath the earth's crust. They believe the tremors that shatter homes and shutter gates are not mere earthquakes, but the restless thrashings of that slumbering beast. Imagine, if you will, standing on cracked soil as the ground rumbles beneath your feet, hearing a distant, guttural roar that feels less like nature and more like a challenge issued by something primeval, something that reshapes the world with every jerk of its massive tail. Yet Namazu's legend is more than terror. It's a reminder of humanity's fragile grasp on stability. When peasant uprisings threatened to consume feudal lords, the catfish became a symbol of both destruction and renewal. Earthquakes cleared old injustices so new power could emerge. In that sense, each quake was not punishment, but possibility, a chance to rebuild societies more just than before. Could it be that calamity and hope are two sides of the same coin, flipped by a creature whose very existence forces people to reckon with change? Higher still, amid the twisted roots of ancient cedars, dwell the Rokurokubi, women by day whose necks stretch like shadows by night, letting their heads wander freely in search of mischief. They slip into candlelit tea houses, peering greedily at glowing hearths, whispering rumors that infect minds like a creeping illness. But some tales tell of Rokurokubi who use their elongated forms to rescue children from burning roofs or steal poisoned sake before it claimed a life. In these split selves, monster and savior, lies an unsettling truth that our darkest impulses can, at times, become the source of our greatest kindness. Consider the case of Lady Icy, a court poet who, cursed for her jealousy, transformed into a Rokurokubi under the full moon. At first, she wreaked havoc on her rival's gardens, leaving only tangled vines in her wake. Yet as the years passed, her heart softened. She slipped into the quarters of a dying painter and fanned his last breaths, then gathered honeydew from dew-laden petals for a grieving mother's wounds. It was as though her curse forced her to confront the duality within every soul. Are we less monstrous for our kindness, or more compelling because of our capacity to change? And what of the Joragumo, the spider woman, who lures lone travelers to her lair among the rocks of coastal cliffs? A beautiful maiden by moonlight, she entangles men in silken webs of desire and deceit, then reveals her true form in a horrifying swirl of 8 legs and venom. One merchant named Hachiro lost his fortune when he followed a mysterious laughter into a hidden cave. He emerged days later, bewildered, clutching a single spider's fang and muttering he'd been spoiled by sweetness only to taste betrayal. His wife wept beside him, for she recognized in his hollow eyes the moment when trust, once spun, can unravel lives. Midway through this odyssey, let's pause and hold these stories against the mirror of our own world. What binds us to these myths, the fear of things we cannot see, or the unspoken hope that stories can guide us through our darkest trials? In feudal Japan, each legend served as a living fable. Respect the land's mysteries, honor your promises, and beware the thin line between protector and predator. Today, we still crave these warnings, even if our monsters wear different faces: corporate greed, social isolation, or the silent quakes beneath our own ambitions. Now, journey with me to the misty shores of Lake Biwa, where the yūrei, the restless spirits of the dead, roam in search of closure. They drift along the water's edge, their long hair obscuring hollow faces, their kimono sleeves trailing like ripples on the surface. Legend says that if you glimpse a lone figure beckoning you closer, you must never approach. For in the moment you reach out, your soul becomes the final stitch in their tattered kimono, binding you to their endless lament. One young fisherman, driven by grief, ventured too near and vanished, leaving only his hat floating atop a ripple that spread across the dawn-lit lake. But even here, among the sorrow, flickers of compassion emerge. Monks at Hakone Castle conduct nightly rites to soothe these wandering souls, uttering their names aloud and offering incense so they might recall the warmth of life and move toward the next world. In those silent prayers, there is both sorrow for what's been lost and a profound respect for memory's power. Aren't our own acts of remembrance, photographs, letters, whispered prayers, no less an offering to the past? Perhaps in acknowledging loss, we grant spirits of every kind the freedom to finally rest. Deep within the forest, where sunlight fractures through cedar boughs, lies a hidden no stage where the legend of the Okina is performed at twilight. This ancient dance tells of a joyous old man whose laughter could coax flowers from barren ground and whose tears could summon rain to parched fields. Some say he was a kami in disguise, testing villagers' hearts. Others insist he was the spirit of the land itself, manifest in human form. The performance ends as the actor freezes in a playful bow, and an invisible breath seems to stir the audience's chest, an unspoken reminder that beneath every legend is a pulse, a heart beating in time with ours. As the third act of our journey draws to a close, consider this: the myths and legends of feudal Japan are not relics locked behind temple gates. They live in every quake that cracks our foundations, in every kindness born from hardship, in every moment when we choose empathy over fear. They teach us that the boundaries we draw between human and spirit, cruelty and mercy, are more fragile than we believe. Ahead, deeper mysteries await: secret monks who harness lightning, fox brides who vanish at dawn, and forbidden rituals that blur the line between life and afterlife. But for now, let the echo of rolling drums and chanting priests fade into your thoughts, guiding you toward what lies beyond the next veil of mist. As twilight deepens, the forest seems to hold its breath, waiting for the next secret to unfurl. Through a narrow valley carved by time and ice, there lies the village of Shirakawa, built on stilts above mist-choked waters. Here, fishermen speak in hushed tones of the umibozu, the sea monk whose towering silhouette rises from the waves like a living storm cloud. When ships vanish and nets come back empty, sailors swear they felt a cold hand brush their shoulder and heard a voice echo from the Black Sea. Fear the calm before the tempest. Those who survive return ashore with faces drained of blood, convinced that the umibozu does not merely drown ships but steals the spark that drives a soul to hope. Yet in Shirakawa, every life depends on the water's gifts and curses alike. Mothers whisper prayers to Inari, leaving offerings of rice and sake at lonely shrines perched on wooden posts. At dawn, elderly women walk the flooded rice paddies, scattering salt and chanting verses to calm the restless spirit lurking beneath each muddy row. They know that to tame the sea's hunger, one must offer both respect and generosity. To deny either is to invite disaster. In that delicate balance of fear and reverence, one sees the essence of feudal Japan's fragile world, where survival hinged on honoring forces far greater than any mortal lord. Not far from these fields stands the forest of Tamagawa, where the Jikaninki, hungry ghosts, roam in search of human flesh. They were once priests who failed their vows, condemned after death to ravenous hunger as punishment. Their skeletal forms slip between trees, devouring any who stray too deep. One woodcutter, returning home after a long day, stumbled upon a rotting figure hunched over a fallen traveler. Rather than flee, he offered his own rations of rice, placing them on a mossy stone. The Jikaninki paused, the bones of its fingers trembling, before dissolving into mist, leaving the rice tinged with tears that tasted of both sorrow and salvation. That act of compassion, simple, yet profound, remains a testament to the power of kindness, even when confronting horror. Higher in the mountains, amid jagged peaks veiled by drifting clouds, stands the Temple of the Silver Bell. Pilgrims ascend ancient steps carved into living rock, their breath turning to mist in the cold air. At the summit, the bell hangs beneath twisted pine limbs, its surface etched with ancient mantras. Legend tells that when the first crane flew over these peaks, its wings rang the air so pure that the bell was forged to capture that sound for eternity. Those who ring it at midnight claim they glimpse the crane itself, a luminous bird gliding through starlit sky, its cry weaving hope into the heart of any who listen. Yet some say the bell also resonates with the pain of every traveler who failed the climb, infusing each chime with both triumph and regret. In the villages below, storytellers gather by hearth fires to pass on these accounts, weaving a tapestry of wonder and warning. They know that each narrative is a living entity, shifting with every voice that carries it. A child hears of the crane and dreams of reaching impossible heights. An elder remembers a love lost on a mountain pass and sees the bells echo as a promise of reunion. Through stories, they bind themselves to their landscape and to one another, forging community from shared awe and shared fear. And so our journey brings us to the Palace of Whispers, the hidden chamber beneath the Emperor's castle where forbidden scrolls are kept. It is said that within these silken pages lie prayers older than any recorded history, incantations so potent they can summon storms or still them. Only the Imperial Court's most trusted onmyoji, masters of divination and spirit, dare to enter, their shadows flickering against gold leaf walls as they trace arcane symbols with slender brushes. Some scrolls describe rituals involving the blood of Oni, others speak of dances to charm the Rokushikamaki, a demon said to guard the threshold between life and death. Few outsiders know what unfolds in that chamber, but rumors persist of a secret council that governs the tides of fate itself, binding emperors and kami alike in a covenant of balance and blood. Midway through this descent into mysteries, pause and consider the weight of forbidden knowledge. To wield such power is to carry the seed of one's own downfall, for every enchantment demands a price. In feudal Japan, ambition and hubris often walked hand in hand, and those who sought to command spirits found themselves commanded in turn. From emperors to peasants, each individual danced on a tightrope stretched between reverence and domination, knowing that a single misstep could unleash forces beyond any blade's reach. As the moon reaches its zenith, we turn our gaze to the tail of the Kyuden, a creature bearing the head of a cow and the body of a serpent, whose appearance foretold both plague and prosperity. In the waning years of one dynasty, a Kyuden manifested in a drought-starved province, wandering the fields and speaking of rot beneath the earth. Crops withered, and famine spread like wildfire until a wandering healer named Botan confronted the creature. She offered her own body as a vessel for its message, weaving herbs into her hair and clay into her bones. The Kyuden spoke through her, declaring that only by uniting villages in shared sacrifice, each sharing food and water, could the land be healed. Though many perished, the communal effort rekindled hope, and rain eventually returned. Botan collapsed when the plague passed, and when she awoke, the Kyuden was gone. Her body bore a single scale, glinting like a tear of mercy, reminding generations that even the most dire prophecy could blossom into redemption. Beyond these shadows lies one final legend before our next chapter's climax, the story of the fox bride, Tamamo, who took human form to love and deceive until the dawn revealed her true nature. A young samurai, enamored by her luminous beauty, pledged his life and name to her, only to awaken one morning to the sight of 9 tails fanning his pillow and her laughter fading like mist. Devastated, he pursued her through moonlit forests until the last tail dissolved in a pool of silver light. Some say he never forgave her trickery, while others believe he became the hermit poet whose verses still speak of longing and betrayal. In their tale lies the haunting question, can love born of deception ever survive truth? Now, as the embers of our tale glow low, and the forest slumbers once more, reflect on the truths these myths impart. They are less about monsters and more about the fragile threads that bind us, to each other, to the land, and to forces unseen. They remind us that courage often arises in the face of despair, that mercy can temper vengeance, and that the darkest curses may yield unexpected grace. Ahead lies the final descent, where ancient bloodlines clash with otherworldly legions, where the boundary between human and kami dissolves in a final symphony of steel and spirit. But for now, let the hush of these woods cradle your thoughts, and know that when you awaken, the last veil will lift, and you will stand at the crossroads of myth and destiny, ready to meet the dawn of your own legend. Night falls heavy as the wind carries distant drums toward the ruined battleground of Otsu, where the final act of our epic unfolds. Under a blood-red moon, 2 forces gather, the descendants of samurai bloodlines, clad in armor etched with ancestral crests, and a legion of yokai summoned from shadowed realms. Their clash will decide whether the world remains bound by mortal law or unravels beneath supernatural chaos. At their head strides Lady Kagaya, a warrior priestess who mastered both blade and incantation. Her emerald eyes burn with purpose as she raises a mirror polished to a reflective sheen, the sacred Yada no Kagami, said to reveal truth's pure light. Across the field, the Oni general Gozu, towering and horned, bears teeth stained with the blood of 100 villages. In one hand, he wields a war club that shatters stone, in the other, a scroll inscribed with forbidden curses. Between them lies a chasm of fate. As steel meets spirit, the earth trembles. Ethereal flames swirl around Kagaya's blade, each strike forging seals that bind lesser demons to dust. Gozu roars, his voice like 1,000 anvils, and slashes through those bindings with a swipe of his cursed club. Sparks of otherworldly energy erupt, illuminating fallen banners and shattered totems. The air crackles with tension, pregnant with the weight of ancestors whose silent prayers echo from weathered graves. Midway through this titanic duel, the sky fractures and lightning, an omen drawn by the Onmyoji Council, who stand on the ridge above, their purple robes billowing like restless clouds. They chant a layered incantation, weaving threads of yin and yang into a trap designed to ensnare Gozu's spirit. Below, Kaguya fights on, each parry infused with the compassion she holds for both the living and the dead. She recalls the faces of villagers saved from famine, of children soothed by her gentle chants, reminding her that mercy can temper the fiercest fury. Yet Gozu is relentless. With a thunderous roar, he summons a horde of shadow oni that pour forth like a river of darkness, threatening to drown the samurai line. Weapons shatter, armor cracks, the ground runs slick with an unholy ichor. In that moment, Kaguya lowers her blade and raises her voice in a plaintive melody, a song taught to her by her mother, a shrine maiden whose faith bridged the gap between human and kami. The melody slices through the chaos, weaving hope into hearts grown weary. One by one, the Oni general's minions falter, their forms dissolving into motes of light that drift upward like forsaken souls finding rest. Gozu staggers, fury giving way to uncertainty. Sensing her opening, Kaguya steps forward, Yata no Kagami held aloft, its surface glowing with a blinding radiance. She demands that Gozu face his own reflection, forcing him to confront the humanity he betrayed. For a heartbeat, a breath suspended in time, the demon staggers as the mirror reveals memories he discarded, a child's laughter, a mother's embrace, a promise broken on a night of roaring fires. The realization tears at his monstrous heart, fracturing the cruel will that sustained him. With a final, searing cry, Kaguya plunges her blade into the scroll of curses, tearing it asunder. A wave of resonant light sweeps across the field, dissolving the remaining yokai and silencing the Onmyoji's chants in a single, harmonious blast. When the blinding glow subsides, Gozu kneels before her, his horns fractured, his eyes filled with regret. Kaguya lowers the mirror, allowing the last spark of demon's wrath to fade into peaceful twilight. In the hush that follows, survivors, both human and spirit, emerge from the shadows. The samurai lower their weapons, and the Onmyoji step forward to seal the boundary between worlds. Lady Kaguya approaches Gozu and offers him a fragment of her mirror, symbolizing redemption's possibility even for the darkest soul. Gozu accepts, and in that act, the ancient covenant between humanity and the supernatural is reborn, tempered by compassion and bound by mutual respect. As dawn's first pale light brushes the horizon, the battlefield transforms. Fallen banners become prayer flags, fluttering with blessings. Scattered swords are gathered and offered at nearby shrines. Ghostly echoes of the clash fade into memory, replaced by the gentle murmur of a new day. In that fragile space between night and morning, the true power of these legends reveals itself, not in spectacle, but in the choices we make when faced with darkness. Remember the tremor of the catfish's tail, the silent weeping of vengeful spirits, the stretch of a cursed neck, or the whisper of a crane's wings. These aren't mere stories. They are mirrors reflecting our own fears and hopes. They teach that honor without empathy breeds tyranny, that strength untempered by mercy invites ruin, and that every heart, no matter how hardened, may find redemption in a single act of compassion. Now, as the first songbirds greet the sun and the last shadows of myth retreat, carry these lessons with you. In your own life's battles, whether against injustice, despair, or the shadows within, you hold the same power to bind curses or break them, to chase monsters away, or to face them with understanding. The tapestry of feudal Japan's myths is woven into ours, a reminder that every legend lives within us. If these tales stirred something in you, fear or hope, wonder or resolve, then join our journey beyond the veil. Subscribe for more stories that bridge worlds and illuminate the unseen. Under the full moon, a samurai walks alone through the misty forest. His armor is silent, his blade untouched, but something follows him, just out of sight. A whisper in the leaves, a flicker of white between trees. He doesn't look back, because he knows, if he sees her face, he dies. Feudal Japan wasn't just a world of warriors, castles, and emperors. It was a world haunted by stories so powerful, they shaped how people lived, how they died, and what they feared in the dark. You may think history is dry. You may think myths are just bedtime stories. But what if I told you these legends were once considered real, deadly real, and that in the silence of ancient temples and the shadows of narrow mountain roads, some say they still are? Let's start with the most chilling one. The legend of the Yukiana. She appears in snowstorms, beautiful, pale, wearing a white kimono. But don't be fooled. She is not lost. She is not helpless. She is death itself. Men who meet her never return. Some say she freezes their hearts with a breath. Others, that she leads them gently into the snow, and they lie down willingly, never to rise again. But why do so many versions end with mercy? In some stories, she lets a man go. In others, she spares him because he has a child. This contradiction, killer and savior, makes her terrifying. She is not a monster you can fight. She is a force, like winter itself. The idea of women as ghosts or spirits wasn't new in Japanese folklore. But in the isolation of mountain villages, these stories took on a life of their own. Think of it. Long winters, little food, and every crackle in the trees sounds like footsteps. Fear needs a face. And so the Yukiana was born. But cold wasn't the only fear. Let's go deeper, into the rice fields of the countryside, where something far more unsettling waits. The Gashidakuro, a giant skeleton made of the bones of those who died of hunger. Picture it, 20 meters tall, silent, invisible until it's too late. You hear a faint ringing in your ears. That's your only warning. Then it grabs you, lifts you like a doll, and crushes you into the earth. The Gashidakuro doesn't wander without reason. It's born when thousands die in famine or war. The legend says the earth remembers those who starve, and one day it rises. Now ask yourself, how does a myth like that survive? Why does it matter? Because famine wasn't rare in feudal Japan. Whole villages vanished in the span of a single season. The Gashidakuro is more than horror. It's a way of processing collective trauma. A towering reminder that no matter how many names are forgotten, the suffering is never lost. Some myths weren't about death, but something stranger. Something ancient and mischievous. The kitsune, fox spirits. Not evil, not good, but unpredictable. They could take the form of beautiful women, trick men, steal their spirits, or grant them knowledge. But never trust a fox too long. She'll vanish at sunrise. Sometimes she was your wife. For years. And one day, she disappears without a trace, and you find a fox tail under her pillow. The legend whispers that they come to learn human love, and then leave once their heart begins to feel too much. But behind the romantic tone lies something sharper. In a society where emotions were often suppressed, these stories gave shape to the unexplainable. The feeling of loss when someone changes. The fear that nothing, not even love, is what it seems. Kitsune stories were passed from father to son, wife to mother. Every village had their version. A man who swore his bride turned into a fox. A hunter who watched his child grow fox ears. Were they lies? Dreams? Or something older than either? And then there were the Tengu. Red-faced, winged beings who lived in the mountains. Part man, part bird, and full of disdain for the arrogant. They kidnapped monks, punished liars, and taught swordplay to those they deemed worthy. But here's the twist. They weren't always evil. In early tales, they were demons. Later, they became protectors. What changed? The country did. As Buddhism took hold, old spirits were demonized. But over time, people missed the wildness, the unpredictability, and the Tengu evolved. They became tricksters with a code. Still dangerous, still proud, but not heartless. One of the most curious stories is about a boy named Minamoto no Yoshitsune, a real samurai hero trained in the mountains by a Tengu. It's said the spirit taught him to leap through trees, to move without sound, to wield the blade like a whisper. Historical fact? Of course not. But the truth lies not in the detail, but in the belief. People wanted to believe their heroes were touched by the gods. That greatness didn't come from bloodline, but from the spirits who chose you. In a land ruled by strict hierarchy, that was a powerful idea. But not all spirits were beautiful or noble. Some were born of cruelty, of blood, of unburied rage. Meet the Onryo, vengeful ghosts. Women murdered by lovers, betrayed by husbands, silenced by fathers. They return not to haunt, but to destroy. Think of the face from the ring. Long black hair, pale skin, blank eyes. That's an Onryo. And she doesn't care who you are. Once she finds you, she follows. In many legends, the Onryo isn't stopped by rituals or prayers. She only fades when her rage is acknowledged. When someone speaks her truth. It's terrifying, yes, but also deeply human. These weren't just ghost stories. They were warnings. echoes of real injustices that could never be spoken aloud. So they became myths. And myths, unlike people, do not forget. Now step into the forests of Mount Osor, the mountain of fear, said to be the gate to the underworld. There, blind priestesses called Atakos speak with the dead. Even now, in the modern world, every summer, people climb the sacred path, kneel before a blind woman, and ask her to find their loved one on the other side. She enters a trance. Her voice changes, and suddenly, you're hearing words only your sister, your father, your child would know. Is it real? A trick? That's not the point. The point is the silence between her sentences, the tears on your face, the sense that something old and sacred still breathes under the surface of the present. Japanese mythology isn't just ghosts and foxes. It's a map of fear, longing, and the things we can't explain. And sometimes, it reaches forward into real history. Like the story of Oiwa. She was a real woman. Beautiful, loyal, and poisoned by her husband for another woman. Her face melted. Her eye drooped. She died in agony. But she didn't leave. She haunted him. In mirrors, in dreams. His new wife went mad. He lost everything. Her story was turned into kabuki theater. But every time an actor plays her, they must pray at her grave. Or else. Some productions even shut down mysteriously, lights explode, actors fall sick. Coincidence? Or curse? Even now, Oiwa is feared. Because she isn't a monster. She's a reminder that wrongs don't vanish. That beauty and cruelty often walk hand in hand. But perhaps the strangest tale of all is one you already know, without knowing it. The tale of Urashimataro, a fisherman who saves a turtle. The turtle takes him to an underwater palace, where he meets a princess and lives in paradise. Days pass. Then he decides to return home. But when he does, centuries have passed. Everyone he knew is dead. And when he opens the box the princess gave him, not to be opened under any circumstance, he instantly ages into dust. It sounds simple, but think about it. A man plucked from time. A paradise that wasn't real. A choice to look inside a mystery and be destroyed by the knowledge. This is no fairy tale. It's a meditation on mortality, temptation, and the price of curiosity. Now ask yourself, what makes these legends so lasting? Why do they still stir something deep inside us, even across centuries and cultures? Maybe because they weren't meant to entertain. They were meant to warn, to explain, to comfort, and to haunt. The sun has barely peaked over the misty mountains when a merchant named Ishida Masanori sets out with a pack of precious silks. He knows the roads are dangerous, bandits, wild boar, collapsed bridges, but nothing prepares him for what waits at the edge of the grove. There, under the twisted boughs of an ancient cedar, stands a creature with the hollow, expressionless face of a man and the sleek form of a fox. No eyes, no mouth, just smooth, pale skin. Masanori's heart freezes. This is the Naparabo, the faceless ghost that appears to travelers, luring them close with a familiar form, sometimes a friend, sometimes a lost child, then peeling away its visage to reveal a void. Legend says that to witness its maskless face is to lose your own identity. Masanori stumbles backward, silks tumbling, and flees. He hears laughter behind him, dry, hollow, impossible, and knows he escaped only because the sun rose. The Naparabo vanishes with the shadows, waiting for dusk to reclaim its power. By mid-morning, he reaches a small village where stories of strange nights abound. The villagers speak in hushed tones of the Rokurokubi, women who look ordinary by day, but at night their necks stretch impossibly long. They twist through windows to peer at sleeping houses, searching for secrets, for sins, for weakness. Some say these women were cursed for vanity, others for betrayal. Either way, no one dares confront them directly. And yet, a grandmother quietly hands Masanori rice cakes, warning him to never stare too long at her neck when the lanterns flicker low. Because once you see the stretch, you cannot unsee it. It sinks into your mind like a needle, and the fear takes root. As he moves on, the terrain shifts from rice terraces to rocky hills. Here, the tanuki roam, mischievous raccoon dogs with magical powers. They can shape-shift into tea kettles, sake jars, even entire houses. Travelers have been fooled into drinking poisoned sake from their illusions. Merchants have paid fortunes for tanuki skins they thought miraculous, only to wake and find they'd given away their own money. Yet the tanuki are not malevolent. They are tricksters, teachers of humility and laughter. They remind proud samurai and arrogant lords that the world is not always what it seems, that our senses betray us, and our certainty often leads to folly. In one shrine by a rushing river, Masanori finds a painting of the Kappa, water imps with hollow heads filled with water, sunken eyes, and a beak-like mouth. In summer, children swim near riverbanks, daring each other to test if the water in a Kappa's head holds too much weight. If they catch one, the creature pleads for its bowl to refill. Then, in a moment of compassion, the boy may pour water back, earning the creature's friendship and protection from drowning. Yet those who mock it are dragged beneath the current, their screams swallowed by dark depths. It's a lesson about respect for nature's power and how mercy can transform terror into alliance. Masanori's journey continues into the grand temple city, where priests recite sutras for peace of mind. Here, the legends soften into moral tales. The priests speak of the Jorigomo, a spider spirit that can appear as a beautiful woman to ensnare men, weaving her silk into webs that trap both flesh and soul. They tell of a samurai who was lured by a Jorigomo's song, only to wake entangled in her silk and at the mercy of her venom. But he repented, prayed for forgiveness, and the spider unraveled her web, sparing his life. The priests say this teaches us. Temptation may wear a familiar face, but only a grounded heart sees the web for what it is. Compassion and self-awareness are the blade that cuts illusion. At dusk, as Masanori rests beneath a lantern's glow, he hears laughter on the wind. It's soft, childlike, but with an edge. From the darkness emerges a child in white robes, innocent, smiling. He reaches out his hand. Masanori's throat tightens. He remembers the Yukiana, the mandragora-like pull of her voice. He remembers every tale of spirits that lure you to your doom. He does not take the hand. Instead, he bows his head and murmurs a prayer taught by his father. The child's smile falters. Then he fades into mist. Masanori exhales, hands trembling. In the flicker of that lantern, Masanori realizes something. These legends are not obstacles on his path. They are the path itself. Each myth carries the weight of fear, of hope, of hard-won wisdom. They're the code by which people lived. Respect the mountain, honor the rivers, question what seems real, and never forget that every kindly face could hide a lesson or a warning. As dawn breaks once more, he straps his pack tighter. Ahead lies a long road to the capital, where politics are as treacherous as any spirit realm. He knows now to be vigilant, not just for bandits, but for illusions. Because the greatest danger isn't a blade in the dark, it's the belief that you are safe. And in feudal Japan, safety was an illusion as fragile as a rice paper screen. He steps forward, leaving footprints in the soft earth, footprints that might be followed by something else. A small, curious foxtail, or the echo of hollow laughter. Because in this land, stories never die. They wait in the wind, in the trees, in the beating of your heart. And when you least expect it, they will find you. A sudden chill brushes Masanori's neck as he steps into the ruined courtyard of an abandoned fortress. Moss creeps along broken walls, and the scent of damp earth mingles with the faint tang of blood. In one corner lies a rusted helmet, its owner long gone. Yet here, every stone seems to remember. A story circulates of Lord Takeda's ghost, an honorable daimyo betrayed by his own retainers during a bitter power struggle. They slit his throat beneath a cherry tree in full bloom, then fled into the night. Legend says his spirit still wanders the ramparts, sword drawn, searching for traitors. When moonlight strikes the castle just so, you can see his armor gleam through the mist. But approach, and the reflection vanishes, replaced by the soft drip of water and the whisper of leaves. Is it remorse? Or a warning that betrayal never stays buried? Masanori pauses at the threshold, remembering tales of samurai who stormed these walls centuries ago, some to reclaim honor, others to steal gold. Each left a fragment of themselves here. A bloodstain on a step, a discarded katana in the undergrowth. The fortress is a palimpsest of violence and loyalty, where myth and memory intertwine. As he ventures deeper, the air grows heavy. He senses presence, something watching from the darkness. His hand tightens on his sword hilt, not to fight, but to steady his heart. Because in feudal Japan, fear was more than emotion, it was a teacher. Beyond the gate, a narrow corridor leads to what once was the Lord's chamber. Sliding open the door, Masanori finds lacquered screens painted with battle scenes, warhorses rearing, banners snapping in stylized wind. But the warriors' faces are blank, as if erased. A cedar chest sits in the center, its lid slightly ajar. Inside, dozens of letters tied with crimson ribbon spill onto the floor. Love letters? Orders? Confessions? He kneels and unfolds one. Elegant brush strokes confessing loyalty and lamenting a broken oath. Each word drips with regret. Masanori realizes these are the voices of the betrayed, retainers who swore fealty, then plotted murder. Their guilt, their shame, became ink on paper, and those words became legend. He pockets a single letter, its ribbon not loosened by time, and exits into the moonlit hall. Outside, the fortress stones hum with stories waiting to be heard. It's midnight, but sleep feels distant. Because every myth he's encountered has a lesson. The cruelty of betrayal, the weight of broken promises. And that knowledge pulses in his veins as he walks under the gnarled branches of an old cherry tree, once the site of Takeda's last breath. Now, petals drift like blood flakes across the ground. Masanori wonders how one reconciles beauty with violence. The tree blossoms, yet beneath its blooms lies betrayal. In that contrast, there is truth. Nothing is purely one thing or the other. Every glory hides a wound. Every legend masks a deeper fear. Leaving the fortress behind, he follows a narrow path descending toward a mist-shrouded valley. Here, villagers speak of the Ubium, a woman spirit who appears by riverbanks, cradling a newborn. She calls for help, her arms outstretched, her eyes wide with desperation. If you give her aid, the infant turns to a bundle of leaves. If you refuse her, she wails until you do. They say the Ubium is a mother who died in childbirth, cursed to search endlessly for someone to care for her child. In that tale lies both tragedy and compassion, love that transcends death, grief that refuses peace. Masanori watches the water's surface, half expecting to see a pale arm emerge. But the river is still, the valley silent. At dawn, he arrives at a small shrine perched on a rocky outcrop overlooking Lake Kawaguchi. Fishermen use the shrine to pray for safe waters, but Masanori notices something unusual. Ropes of straw hung on pine branches, each adorned with talismans scrawled in ink. They shimmer in the morning sun, swaying in a breeze he cannot feel. A priestess approaches, eyes clouded with age, and whispers that these are offerings to appease the Namazu, the giant catfish that, according to myth, lives beneath the earth and causes earthquakes when it thrashes its tail. People here live in constant tension. One moment, the ground is firm. The next, it might shatter. So they write prayers, tie them to branches, hoping to still the creature's rage. It's a ritual born of uncertainty, an attempt to assert control over forces beyond human grasp. Masanori reflects on how people cope with the unknown. Through stories, they name their fears, twisted spirits in forests, vengeful ghosts in castles, colossal beasts beneath the earth. In assigning form to the formless, they find a measure of power, an illusion, perhaps, but a vital one. He spends the afternoon watching local children play near the lake's edge. They chase each other with sticks, their laughter echoing against the mountains. Masanori notices one girl pause, staring at her own reflection, then skitter away when she sees a second face behind hers. She laughs, covering her mouth, and runs into the group. He smiles, realizing the old myths still dance in children's imaginations. Fear and wonder entwined, as potent now as centuries ago. As twilight falls, Masanori sets up camp on the lake shore. He lights a small fire and unfolds the crimson ribbon from the letter he took at the fortress. Holding it in the flickering light, he reads the final confession. I betrayed my lord not for gold, but for love of another. May my shame feed the earth, and may the winds carry my apology to the heavens. He folds the paper carefully and places it on a flat stone by the fire, offering it to the spirits of the land. Smoke rises, taking the word skyward. In that moment, he understands something crucial. Myths are not static. They evolve with every telling, shaped by the fears and hopes of those who remember them. They guide decisions, forge identities, and offer a way to reckon with the uncharted territories of the heart. And as the fire dies, Masanori feels a shift, not in the ground, but within himself. a quiet acceptance that the ghosts of feudal Japan are part of him now, woven into his story. He lies back on his mat, eyes on the star-studded sky. Tomorrow, the path will lead him to the capital's bustling streets, where politics and power games rival any encounter with spirits. But for tonight, he lets the myths cradle him. He knows he wouldn't last a day without them. Without their warnings, their consolations, their reminders that life is as fragile as cherry petals and as unpredictable as an earthquake's tremor. Resting there, Masanori drifts towards sleep, guarded by the silent silhouettes of mountains and the gentle echo of ancient tales. And somewhere beyond the horizon, the spirits wait for another traveler, another confession, another story to be told. The city gates rise before Masanori like carved stone titans, their faces worn by centuries of wind and war. Beyond them lies the capital, a maze of lacquered rooftops, crowded markets, and courtyards where courtiers gossip beneath silk canopies. The air thrums with tension, rival clans jockey for favor, spies slip through shadows, and alliances shift as suddenly as mountain mists. He slips inside under cover of dawn, blending with merchants hauling rice and lacquerware. At first glance, life here seems orderly, an endless dance of bows and murmured greetings. But Masanori knows better. Beneath every polite smile lies ambition, envy, fear. It's said that in the palace, even the palace cats are secret agents, their sleek forms trained to mark travelers with unseen curses if they stray too close. His first visit is to the Grand Shrine, where worshippers offer coins and prayers for prosperity. The priests here recite sutras not just to honor the kami, but to placate court eunuchs who believe every ill omen springs from unseen spirits. A trembling noblewoman arrives, clutching a child's wooden carving. She claims her son was stolen by a jikininki, a flesh-eating spirit born of greed. Legend tells that jikininki haunt burial grounds, drawn by the scent of decay. They appear as gaunt figures with hollow eyes and claws stained crimson, stalking those who disrespect the dead. Masanori watches the woman place rice and incense before the carving, her tears tracing silent lines of desperation. He understands her fear. In feudal Japan, dying without proper rites meant more than sorrow. It meant becoming prey. He leaves before noon, crossing the wide plaza where children sell sweet potatoes roasted over charcoal. A firelight scent drifts across his path, mingling with the clamor of haggling voices. Suddenly, an old storyteller sits before a small crowd, unrolling a scroll depicting a woman wearing a brilliant red kimono and a white mask. His voice is soft, but every word rivets the listeners. They learn of Kukusei-kana, the slit-mouthed woman, who roams streets when the moon is high. She approaches alone, her mask hiding a wound that stretches from ear to ear. She asks, "Am I beautiful?" If you answer wrong, she removes her mask, revealing the grin of flesh, and asks again. If you hesitate, she cuts your tongue. If you say yes, she tears your mouth to match hers. The crowd shivers with terror. Masanori remembers the story from childhood, told to keep children from wandering after dark. Yet here, in the heart of the capital, even adults listen with wide eyes. Because every myth lives on in the spaces where belief and reality blur. As dusk falls, he enters a tea house where courtiers unwind with sake and poetry. The lantern-lit rooms pulse with laughter and debate. One masked samurai recites a verse about a warrior who held back an army by standing alone at a narrow bridge, sword drawn. They speak his name in hushed tones, Fujimura's ghost. He died defending the realm, they say, but refused rest until the kingdom was safe. Now, on nights of war's anniversary, locals swear they see a lone samurai stride across the stone bridge at midnight, his armor glowing faintly. Some claim he warns the living of danger, others that he lures them into ambush. Masanori sips his tea, feeling the chill of that presence as though it circled the tea house. No proof, of course, just whispers. But in this city, whispers can topple dynasties. When he sleeps that night in a modest inn, Masanori dreams of battle drums and clanging swords. A red-eyed horse gallops through mist, its rider a figure in flame-colored armor. The warrior dismounts and removes his helmet. Beneath it, a skull. The phantom raises a blade and beckons. Masanori wakes with a start, heart pounding, only to hear an echoing neigh through the thin paper walls. He bows his head in silent prayer, summoning every protective charm he carries. The next morning, he ventures into the administrative district, where scrolls of law are weighed like gold. Here, justice is enforced by magistrates who whisper of a creature called the Ajiki. It is described as a silent guardian spirit, part wolf, part shadow, that appears when an innocent person faces wrongful punishment. It stands just beyond the prison walls, eyes glowing, and howls once. The magistrate who hears that howl always reopens the case. Masanori wonders if Ajiki is real, or if the story grew from a single miracle so many times retold that it became legend. Either way, it gives hope to the oppressed and fear to the corrupt. In the afternoon heat, he slips into a narrow alley lined with apothecary shops. A herbalist tells him of a mountain cave on the city's outskirts where the Tengu have made a shrine. Pilgrims travel there seeking mastery of sword and bow, but many return with tales of voices echoing through the tunnels. Voices that mimic your own doubts, your deepest insecurities. Those who resist the voices emerge stronger, they say. Those who succumb never speak again. The herbalist leans close. I've seen the cave, but I will not enter, she whispers. True courage is knowing which spirits to challenge, and which to leave in darkness. As shadows lengthen, Masanori finds himself drawn to the banks of the river that cuts through the city. Lanterns drift on the water like fireflies. Fishermen sing songs to the kappa, offering cucumbers as tribute. Across the river, a lone shrine glimmers. He crosses a small wooden bridge and kneels before it. The air is still. Even the lanterns seem held in place. He closes his eyes and recalls every legend he's collected. The Yukiana and her winter's mercy, the Gashadakuro and its bones of famine, the Kitsune's seductive illusions, the Onryo's unquenchable rage, the Ubyum's eternal grief. Each story taught him something. How to respect nature, how to honor the dead, how to question what seems real. He whispers a vow. I will carry these tales home, to remember the lessons, to honor the souls. As he stands, a breeze stirs the shrine's curtain, revealing a stone carving, a face with lifeless eyes and a half-smile. He shudders, stepping back. It's neither kami nor demon. It's something older, something that predates even the myths. A face that watches travelers and decides if they are worthy of truth. The world beyond these walls teems with power games and betrayals more cunning than any spirit's trick. Yet Masanori feels fortified by the myths he's gathered. They are not just stories. They are tools, forged in fear and hope, to navigate a world where the next shadow could be a blade or a guide. He returns to the inn, the city lights sparkling like stars captured in glass. Before sleep claims him again, he writes in his journal, legends survive because they answer questions history cannot. They survive because they fill the hollow spaces in our souls. And they survive because, without them, we are lost. Tomorrow, he will set out beyond the capital, following rumors of a forgotten shrine deep in the mountains, where the boundary between this world and the next grows thin. They say the kami there speak through wind and thunder, offering visions of the past and warnings of the future. Masanori doesn't know what he will find, but he knows he cannot turn back. Because in feudal Japan, every traveler carries their own ghosts, and every ghost longs for its story to be told. The narrow mountain path narrows further until Masanori finds himself beneath an ancient torii gate carved from blackened cedar. The air hums with unseen energy, and the wind carries 1,000 whispered voices. He steps through, and the forest falls silent. No birdsong, no rustle of leaves. Only his heartbeat and the faint drip of water from moss-laden stones. This is the threshold where mortal and spirit worlds blur. Ahead stands the shrine, half swallowed by the mountain. Its roof is bowed under centuries of snow, its pillars wrapped in vines that pulse like veins. Masanori kneels at the offering box, his palms dusty and trembling. He places the crimson ribbon letter from Takeda's fortress inside, then lights a single candle. The flame flickers, and for a moment, he sees movement behind the shrine, a pair of eyes glowing like molten gold. He whispers a prayer taught by the Atako, calling on the kami of this place. The candle flares, and the shrine's shadows writhe. Then, silence. A presence fills the clearing, immense, neither benevolent nor malevolent, but profoundly ancient. Masanori bows his head and feels a voice in his mind. You have carried stories like burdens, but each gave you guidance. Do not fear what you cannot see. He recalls every legend he's gathered: the Yukiana's mercy, the Gashirakuro's hunger, the Kitsune's illusions, the Onryo's vengeance, the Tengu's teachings, the Ubyum's grief, the Namazu's rage, the Jikaninki's hunger, the Kukuseikana's question, the Ajiki's howl. Each myth spoke of a truth, that unseen forces shape our world, and that understanding them is key to surviving it. As he reflects, the candle dims, then brightens, casting new patterns of light across the shrine's courtyard. In the flicker, he perceives scenes: a winter storm, a burning fortress, a fox slipping through moonlight, a mother weeping at a riverbank, a catfish thrashing beneath the earth, a warrior standing alone on a bridge. Each echo of the past, woven into the present like threads in a tapestry. He realizes these myths are more than tales. They are living lessons encoded into the land itself. The wind stirs, and he hears a low rumble, an earthquake's tremor perhaps, or the Namazu's tail brushing world and word. But instead of fear, Masanori feels clarity. He stands and speaks aloud. I honor these stories and the souls they carry. I will share their wisdom so that others may walk this path with eyes open. In that vow, the forest exhales. Leaves unfurl, the air loosens its grip, and the candle settles into a steady flame. The shrine gates sag as if bowing in respect, then straighten again. The glowing eyes vanish, but he knows the kami have heard him. He turns to leave, but pauses at the torii. Below the arch, he stamps a final mark in the dirt, a simple circle, acknowledgement to the spirits that he has passed this way. The path back looks different now, alive with possibility, not just danger. He steps through, and the world resumes its soundtrack: birdsong, wind, distant hoofbeats. Descending toward the capital road, Masanori reflects on the journey. Feudal Japan was a realm of rigid codes and shifting loyalties, but its true power lay in the unspoken alliances between humans and the unseen. Myths weren't fantasies. They were the manual for life in a land where the veil between worlds was thin. He returns to the marketplace, where life pulses as before. Children run with wooden swords, merchants haggle in lively debate, and courtiers under silk umbrellas discuss the latest intrigue. Yet Masanori sees beneath the surface. Every bow, every whisper, every glance carries a story. And now, he carries them all. That night, as he writes the final entries in his journal by lantern light, he pens one closing thought: legends endure because we endure through them. They teach us how to fear wisely, to hope boldly, and to remember that the world is vast beyond our sight. Those who learn the stories learn to live. He closes the journal, extinguishes the lantern, and steps into the night. The streets are quiet, but he senses the stir of spirits, some playful, some solemn, all watching. He smiles, knowing that tomorrow he will share these myths with others, kindling the flame of wonder and respect.